Hey, what's up? This is Jay Slick Barber. So I'm gonna be telling the story about how I ended up being a barber, barbering, and alcohol, drugs. It was part of my barbering career. I didn't know that was gonna happen, but that's the way it went down. So let's start like this. Barbering was not something I wanted to do. I don't know what I wanted to do, but it wasn't barbering. And what ended up happening was that my mother, which she is my number one resentment, but my biggest cheerleader. God bless her soul. She was the biggest cheerleader, and she is always on my corner. She really is. So what happened was that she ended up becoming a cosmetologist, and then she bought her own salon. So what ended up happening was she had clippers. She had the 76 clippers, the classic 76 clippers, and the senior walls. And she had a few pairs, and one of the other pairs, like all great things, started in the garage. And I started cutting the neighbors' hairs. You know, the people that live next door to me. That's what a neighbor is. And I only did this for one summer. Literally, it was just one summer. And I can't remember what year it was. It could have been, I might have been 16 years old, 15 years old. And I started cutting hair. And I'll tell you one thing, when I picked up those clippers, it felt fine. It felt good. It felt like normal. You know, it didn't feel different. It just felt good. And what ended up happening was I was cutting the neighbors' hairs, and then after that, of course, my mom's talking about you should learn how to cut hair more and do this stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I was young, dumb, 15 years old, 16. I had no vision of any type of career at that age. This is back in 1988, 87, 88. I was in high school. Now you got to remember, back in those days, the fade wasn't much of a fade. It was a kid and play fade where you could literally see the line. So those were the haircuts that I was giving. That, or I would just a number 2 all around to the homeboys that lived in the block. Believe it or not, back in those days, the homeboys used to have hair, and if you got like a 2 or a 1 clipper on top, that was like a mean old cholo look. Not like it is now, or like it was later on, where the cholos literally just cut off their hair bald. Now that was a distinctive look, and if you had that, you know, you were running around in the gangs, in my block anyways. But at that time, I was doing either a 1 or a 2 around the whole head. So then we had these little black kids that moved in, a black family that moved in our block, and I started cutting their hair, and I learned how to cut at least those 2 black kids. I can't remember their name. I think one was Ryan. But other than that, I don't remember. They were only there for the summer, and I was cutting their hair like once a week, maybe twice a week. So then, you know, I started charging them. And at the time, I don't know how much it was, maybe like $4, $3, 5. They stopped coming to me after I started charging them. They stopped coming. They moved out, and then I just stopped cutting hair, period. I just didn't cut any more hair until 2004. I was working at a warehouse. My daughter was already born. She was born in 1993, at a warehouse, and the guy that was working with me, he knew that my mom owned the salon. So he told me, like, dude, why are you working here? Why don't you go learn to cut hair and work at the salon? And I was like, man, I don't want to work over there, because at that time I was heavily drinking and doing drugs, you know, speed, coke, weed, and alcohol. And I was like, I can't work there. I won't be able to do the drugs and the alcohol. And anyway, long story short, he talked me into it. I went up to my mom and I said, how can I be a barber? And she said, go look at the other barbershops, go to different barbershops and ask questions. And a few people had told me that. In fact, I have a best friend to this day. he was always going to barbershops. I never really went to a barbershop because I was getting my haircut by my mom. So he told me what to do. He told me to check out some barbershops. He gave me some names, and I went. And this happened to be during the holidays, so the line was long. You know, the lines were super long. I think haircuts might have been $10. I can't remember what the haircuts were, but I know they're not what they are today. And I was asking questions. Then I ended up going to a barbershop in Norwalk, and he told me what to do. So I ended up going to the Royal Hair Institute in East LA, and I enrolled in cutting hair. It was a great experience. The students that were there, they were extra cool. In fact, I'm still friends with one of the students that was there. A Boogie, what's up? Later on, he ended up coming working at the shop that I have, and then he ended up buying the shop that I have. But anyway, so going to school was freaking awesome. It was like summer school all over. I love summer school. I didn't like regular school, but summer school was dope, and that's what it felt like. You know, you had cosmetologists, you had barbers, and everybody hooked up with somebody. I know I did. And it was just a great time. It was about 10 months, 11 months. Then I finally get my license. I passed, and I finally get my license. And this is something that I'm actually proud of, because I'm a great starter. I'm just a lousy finish. I don't finish a lot of shit that I've done. And at the same time I was going to school, I had to get a job part-time. So I started working at a strip club, because once again, it was my compa, my buddy. We ended up going in there one time, and he says, "Hey, why don't you go try to be a DJ here?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what? Let me try." So I ended up getting the job. So I was going to barber school. I started working at the strip club at night, and I ended up graduating from barber school. I got my barber license, and that was in 2005. And then in 2005, I ended up working at a shop. And once again, my compa tells me, I don't know where I would be without my compa, but he ends up telling me, "Hey, there's a barber shop that's hiring right now," which was the Hot Spot. And at that time, the Hot Spot had, I believe, a total of 3 locations, one on Whittier Boulevard and another one on Olympic and Vale, and then this one was owned by Chris, and he owned the one on Norwalk. And so I went in there, asked him for a job. So I went in there, I asked him for a job. He knew I was fresh out of school, and he gave me a shot, and I started working at that barbershop. And let me tell you, it was the hardest thing, because no one wants to sit down with a brand new barber. This is 2005. Now in 2005, from what I remember, barbering was not a thing anymore. It was actually nothing that it is today. There weren't that many barbers, and the barbers that I was going to, they were old white barbers. Nobody wants to sit in my chair at all. By this time, I believe I already had 2 DUIs, driving under the influence, and I was hard into my alcohol. And at the same time, I got introduced, when I was freaking at the strip joint, I got introduced to pills. Thank God it weren't Oxycontin. They were just volumes. Volumes and Norcos. They were downers. And man, those things were fucking so good. I love the way they make you feel. I like the way they feel better than smoking weed, because they brought me down. You take a few, and when I say a few, like 3-4 pills, down them with the alcohol, with the 40 ounce. Fuck, you're feeling great. Chris was a dope ass barber at the time. I'm sure he got better, but he was a good barber. So everybody was sitting on this chair. Not too many were sitting on my chair. So thank God for that part-time job that I did have. That's my income was coming from there, and so I didn't know what to do. So I would end up going through the back door and just smoking some weed. course, some of the clients got a whiff of that, and we started smoking. Thank God for weed, because they were high, I was high, and they gave me a shot at their hair because they were under the influence. So that's how I gained my in the beginning. That's how I gained a lot of my clients, is that we would smoke weed in the back, drink beer, and they would let me cut their hair. And that's the way it was for a long time, for like a whole year. And then in 2006, what happened was in 2006, and he ended up selling it to me. Now, I didn't want this shop because I was only 1 year out of school. I didn't know, my haircuts were still kind of, they weren't that good at all. And again, like I said, my mom's the biggest cheerleader. She was my biggest cheerleader. She was always on my corner. And that's not the way I saw it. And that's a different story. So she said, just buy the shop. Just buy the shop. And I was like, nah, I don't want to get it because, I don't know how to cut hair. I don't have enough clients. He goes, just buy the shop. You're going to get the clients. You're going to come in. So I ended up buying the shop. And I ended up naming the shop Slick's Barber Shop. So where I got the name Slick's, I was wondering what would sound good. Johnny's Barbershop, John's Barbershop. I didn't know what to name the shop. And one of my favorite movies, I happen to be watching it. It's Heat with Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, and Tom Sizemore, Danny Trejo. In that movie, Tom Sizemore character always refers to everybody as Slick. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And in this movie, Tom Sizemore is always referring everybody as Slick. Shut the fuck up, Slick. Hey, Slick, you see that blood in their ears? That means they can't hear, Slick. And it was always Slick. He called everyone Slick. So I was thinking like, well, you know what? That might be a cool name. Picked up the phone. Thank you for calling Slick's Barbershop. And for some reason, that name just sounded better for me. It sounded right, and I named the barbershop Slick's Barbershop. At the time, also, there was a lot of rockabilly cats out there. You don't see them anymore. You do see them here and there, but at that time, there was a lot of rockabilly. So the rockabilly was always slick back. When I was working at the hotspot, I finally got my first client. And at the barber school, they don't really teach you much. In fact, they wouldn't let us use a razor on people's heads because that was illegal. You couldn't use a blade. You couldn't put a blade on people's head for the razor fade. So I didn't know how to do one. So what I ended up doing was that this guy comes in and he asked for a razor fade. And I said, sure, I can do it. And I'm at the shop by myself. There's no one there at this particular time. And I end up going against the grain on the back of his neck. And I'm going against the grain with the straight edge razor. And of course he's going, And he goes, hey man, you're not supposed to do it that way. And I said, oh shit, I'm sorry. Fucking nervous as fuck, And I ended up just doing it the other way with the grain. And he never came back to the shop. He never came back to the shop. And that's the way it was for when I was working at Chris's Barbershop. Fast forward, I had to back up. Fast forward, I'm at the shop now. I got my shop open. And Slick's Barbershop 2006 is when I opened it. On Labor Day weekend, I opened Slick's Barbershop in 2006. 2019, that's how long I had the shop. So from 2006 to 2011, I was a drunk. I can get into that later on in my stories on how not to own a barbershop. I made a lot of mistakes as a barber owner. A lot of mistakes. I didn't know much about being an owner of any kind of business. So I made a lot of mistakes. And then from 2011 to the present day to, right now we're in 2023, but up until 2019, I was sober. I had stopped drinking. No more drugs, no more weed, no more nothing. I would, couldn't do it no more. But that's a whole different story. But yeah, that's how I ended up buying a barbershop. My mom pushed me. God bless her, and I'm blessed that she is here with us. That she is still with us. I'm so glad that she is. So is my dad. So that's it. That's how it went down. There's more stories to it. Like I said, there's a lot of how not to do it, how not to run your own business, how to ruin your business. But yeah, once I bought the shop, it was on and cracking, man. There was a lot of speed, a lot of glass is what they were calling that. It was glass on Fridays, Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. A lot of after hours at the barbershop. And then that guy that I told you that I was going to school with, A Boogie, he ended up coming to the shop in 2007 because I was working by myself for a full year, and he finally came down. He finally came down to the shop and helped me out. And on the first day of his job, me and a couple of my clients, we ended up going to that strip club that I was working at, and pretty much got fucked up. Came back to the shop and pretty much passed out on a couch that we used to have. Oh yeah, my shop was a party shop. I don't know if people still do that if they party at their shop, but my shop was, and that's the way it was. So anyway, stay tuned for my next one, my next story, and hope you enjoy this one. Again, this is J Slick Barber. Thank you. If you like it, if you want to leave a comment, don't be disrespectful. If you didn't like it, then you didn't like it. But don't be disrespectful. Leave a comment, and I'll see if I can answer some of your questions. If not, that's all good. Stay tuned for my next one. All right. Peace out. J Slick Barber.